Hello, this is Olajide from CTF Security and welcome to the part 2 of Lab 5 on the Porttrigger Web Security Academy series. From the part 1, we actually did some manual exploitation of which we exploited a Postgres database by extracting username and password from the database. And now in this part 2, we're going to be scripting the process of the attack right from determining the number of columns that is being returned by the web application up until determining number of columns, the tables that are present within the application, and lastly extracting all the username and password from the Postgres SQL database. So without wasting much of our time, let's jump right in. So welcome back. The first thing we want to do is to create our Python script. In order to do that, let's head up to the terminal and we're going to create a new file. And this time we're going to call it 05.py. And this is going to open a new text file in which we can impute our Python script. Now, the first thing we want to do is to import all the relevant libraries we're going to be using in this script. And the first one we're going to import is the request library. Next, from BS4, which is the beautiful soup, we're going to import beautiful soup. And lastly, we're going to import the sys library, which we're going to use to handle some system command and some exception. Now, the next thing we want to do is to initiate our try and except block. So from the try and except block, let's just leave that empty for now. And we have except. So on the except, we're going to be actually working on two aspects of the except. The first one is the keyboard interrupt and the second one is the request exception. So let's go with the first one. So we're going to have the request dot exceptions dot request exception as E, which is actually going to throw up an error in case of there's an issue with our request. In such situation, we want the application to print. Let's kind of format this, and we can have an error as occurred. Please check your connection. All right, great. So we can have a more customized message here. And for the second excerpt, this is going to be keyboard interrupt. And in such situation, we want to print the message. Let's have this on a new line. And let's call it program interrupted by user. All right, great. So we have these two exceptions. This is in the case of where we have issues in our request we're making. The second one is the issue of keyboard. So possibly a typical example of this is when we press the Ctrl+C during the program execution, instead of throwing up a random error, so it's just going to have a customized message that says program interrupted by users. So now from the try block, we can now start our program. And from here, the first thing we want to actually do is to declare our URL. Since we're going to be making some requests, and we're going to use the impute keyword in order to get information from the user. So let's call it enter the URL. All right, great. So the next thing we want to get is the parameter, and we call this input also. So enter the parameter. Okay, great. And lastly, we need to have a payload, which is where our SQL injection payload is going to be. So let's have this also as an input, and we can put in enter payload. I can just customize this and say or parameter value. All right, great. Okay, so we've supplied all the variable we needed for our URL. The next thing we want to do is to have header, which is where we're going to use to pass headers. From here, this is going to be in curly brace, and the first one I want to actually pass is the user agent. So let's have user agents. All right, so to confirm this, if we go to the application and let's kind of make this a bit bigger, I'm just going to refresh, right click, and we're going to inspect. All right, great. So if we go to the network tab and let's refresh. Okay, so from the network tab, go to the headers. We have the response headers and we have the request headers. So for the request headers, we have the user agent here. So I'm just going to grab that. So I feel this is correct. I think I got that correctly. So user agent, let me just put it in here. Control Z. All right, good. So this is going to be more of like a dictionary way, and we're going to have the value for the user agent. So let's quickly grab that. Mozilla. So let's go back. I'm going to put that in here. All right, great. So we can also pass others, but I think I'm okay with just the user agent header. So the next thing we want to do is to concatenate all the URLs, so we can just have one single URL to make request to it. Okay. So to do that, we're going to declare a new variable, and we're going to call it just full URL equals to, and then we're going to format this. Let's call it URL. Then after the URL, we have a question mark. So I'm coming back to this. So practically, let me just close this so that we can just have that. So let's say I access a particular category like pet. So you can see that we have the URL, which is up until the endpoint here. So we have a question mark, then we have the parameter. So if you go back here, you have the URL, you have the question mark. So the next thing you are going to have is the parameter. And mind you, the URL is supposed to be in curly brace. So let's have that in curly brace. Okay, good. Aside from the curly brace, we have the question mark. Then we have the parameter. So we're going to have parameter. Nice. Then after the parameter, we're going to have the equals to, and then we're going to have our payload. So that is the hot order. So aside from that, we can now print just to check that we're doing fine. full underscore URL. And I'm going to save, and let's try and execute to make sure that everything is fine. So Python 05.py. Sorry about that, that was a mistake. Should be, so you can see that using the Control C, instead of just throwing errors, we have program interrupted by the user, which is the exception block we have in our code. So let me just clear this. I'm going to use Python 3 instead, 05.py. All right, great. So we need the URL. So I'm going to just grab the URL starting from the filter, and we're going to supply that in here. Then the parameter is going to be category, and the payload slash value for now is going to be pet. So let's go ahead and supply pet in here. All right, great. So you can see that we have just a single URL printed on the screen, which is fine. So let's just do away with this. The next thing we want to do is to make a web request. And to do that, we actually need to comment it out so that our code will be readable. So we're going to say make or making a web request. So in order to make web request, we can use the word response or just any variable. Then we say request dot get, and we are making requests using the full URL and the headers that we have, which is equals to headers, which is our variable here. So we have both parameters already, and then the next thing we want to do is to print response. I'm going to save, and when we execute this, parameter is category, and this is pets. Okay, so we have 200 response, meaning that it actually executed correctly. So the next thing we want to do is to use the beautiful soup to pass the response file, and then we're now going to actually find whatever element we needed to extract from the beautiful soup. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is to first of all use beautiful soup library to pass the HTML content. To do that, we are going to say in a comment using beautiful soup to pass the HTML content. All right, great. So to do that, we're going to have soup equals to beautiful soup. Then we're going to pass some parameter in, which is going to be the response. But this time around, we're not just passing the response status. In the case of what we printed here, what we are passing is the response.txt, which is the text, which is the text version of the response, and then we are specifying our parser, which is going to be the html.parser. All right, great. So the next thing we want to do is to print soup to see what we've got. I'm going to save and do away with this line because we no longer need that. So let's see what we've got. Let me just refresh this so that we don't get timed out. Okay, from the terminal, let's just take this one-sided. copy link, paste. Parameter is category. Payload is going to be pets. Great. So we successfully extracted the information from this particular page, which is exactly what you're seeing here. So if you continue scrolling, you see that the last paragraph that we have here is the grasshopper are surprisingly easy to keep. You can also see some articles on the grasshoppers, and you can see the last line here, which we have understand the rules of the house. You can see it, understand the rules of the house, which is exactly the same page that we are having here. So the next thing we actually want to do is to pass our payload. So remember, when we were actually exploiting the manual exploitation, the first thing we actually did was to determine the number of columns, and since we know that the application returned 2 columns, so we don't need to actually perform this particular step. So when we're going to be moving directly into is extracting the database table, and this is the section where we extracted the database table in here. So let's try to actually use this payload in place of the payload while executing the application. I'm going to do I need to clear? No, not yet. So let's just run that application one more time, and let's have our URL. We can have our parameter to be category, our payload to be okay, yeah, we're using this payload actually. So let's just copy that and put it in here and execute. Oh, I think I copied the wrong one. I copied the wrong commands. So let's just clear it and run that once more. Okay, good. So we need the URL first, which is this. So we need the category parameter, and for the payload, let's go get that again. So we're actually stopping here. That was a mistake. So let's go back and we're going to paste it in here, and let's see what we've got. Okay, so what do we have? Do we have any interesting information? So we have internal server error, I guess, which is this, meaning something is actually wrong with our payload. So we have to be mindful of the payload. So let's execute that again. I'm going to grab this, copy, paste, category. For the payload, I think what I forgot was the double hyphen. So let's just add that in here. Copy, and let's go to our program, and we're going to supply that in here. Alright, great. So you can see that we have list of all the database tables within the application. Now what we need to do is to just extract the one that says user. Okay, actually we have lots and lots of table here, but since from the manual exploitation we see that our table name always starts with users, and then we have underscore some random string. So what we are going to do is to actually filter the output that we're actually getting now, and we're going to try to sort it and compare it with the users underscore. If we have a match, then we're going to output that as the table name. So to do that, let's go to our script and stop printing for now. So in here, we can have a comment that says filter for database table. If we're filtering for database table, the first thing we want to do is to declare a new variable called users table. Let's call it underscore table equals to soup dot find underscore all in bracket tr. Now you might be wondering why we needed to find all tr. Now if you go to the output of our command, you can see that the table information, the table name is inside the th tag, and the th tag is enclosed inside the tr tag. So the objective is to find all the tr tag on this particular web request or web response. Now if we go back to the application, if we have actually find all the tr and we've saved it inside the users table, the next thing we want to do is to filter the table. Now we can now sort the table by finding or comparing every single information within that particular tr tags which we have extracted, and then we compare with the users underscore and see if there's any database table with the same name. So let's have users underscore table equals to I might want to make this bigger. Okay, so let's have tr for tr in users table, which is what we have here. So we have tr for tr in users table, then if tr.th and tr.th.text dot start with, it starts with. So if we go to our manual exploitation and we see the format of the name of the table name, so you can see it always starts with users underscore then random string. So I'm going to copy this, and that is exactly what we would be using for the start with parameter here. All right, great. So aside from that, the next thing we want to do is to print users underscore tables, and let's see what we have. So let's make sure that we are not timed out. Okay, great. Would be executing the application one more time. Paste the URL, the parameter is category, and the payload. Let's grab our payload here. The same payload we just used. Okay. Okay, so you can see that we've successfully extracted a particular table that has the users underscore then some random string in here, which would be the actual table for the database. Now the next thing we want to do is to assess the text format of this particular content. So for now we're having the item inside a list. So what we can do is to modify our print statement. Let's go back to lab 5. So instead of printing, what we could possibly do is to say, let's say for tr in users underscore table, we want to print everything which is tr dot text. Let's see if that is syntactically correct. Do we have that to be correct? That was wrong. And our payload is going to be this. All right, great. So we successfully outputted the database table name. So the next section here, let's go back. So after listing the database table, which is exactly what we want, the next thing we want to do is to list database table columns. So to do this, this is going to be the payload we're going to be using. So we need to make another request that will actually carry this particular payload. So to do that, let's go back to our script. That's our script. All right, good. So we can use, let's say, extracting or determining instead. Determining database table columns. So in order to do that, let's say if users underscore table, so meaning that if we're able to find a table from the previous request, we're going to have table name, which is a new variable, which is going to be equals to users underscore table. So we just want to access the first item in the first index item, which is actually going to be the first table that is on the page. So we can actually access the th.text.strip, which is going to remove the white spaces, the extra white spaces in the text file. So in the text string, I beg your pardon. So the next thing we need to do is to have our second payload. So let's have second underscore payload equals to. So it will be something very similar to the first one we had. And let's just go get that payload. Let's go get that payload. All right, cool. It's going to be the payload. Remember, this is going to change. This one is for the previous manual exploitation we did. So, but for now, I'm going to paste that in here. And we need to make some modification to this. For example, this has to be replaced with the table name variable, which is exactly what we have here, which will be the output of the previous commands that we ran. So we are going to have this to be table name variable. So it's going to be table name. Is that correct? So is there any other thing we need to change? I do not think so. I do not think so. Okay, I'm going to save. The next thing we need to have is the second full underscore URL. So the second full underscore URL is going to be F, and then we can access the URL the same way. We have a question mark, just like the same way we access the first one. Where is it? This one. So question mark, then we have the parameter which is going to be equals to second underscore payload. Did I get that correctly? All right. So let's make our request just the same way we made the first request. Let's call it second underscore response will be equals to request dot get, and then we need to pass some parameter in, and the first one is going to be the second full URL, comma, and then we're going to pass the headers equals to headers, which is going to be the user agent. Okay, so we successfully made our second request. So the next thing is to pass the HTML content of this using the HTML parser and the beautiful soup. So to do that, we're going to be having second soup will be equals to beautiful soup. Then we're going to pass the response as the first parameter, and for the second parameter is going to be the HTML dot parser. Okay, I think that is fine. Let's just do one single quote. I'm going to save. And let's see what we have. So let's say print second soap. Can we say dot text? And let's see what we are going to get. There's an error here. What could that error be? Control save. Let's go back. All right, great. So let's copy a URL. Parameter is category, and the payload, which is still going to be the first payload because we needed to just execute the first payload, and the second one will be supplied within the program. Let's see what we've got. Okay, so we have an error on line 34. Line 34 was the problem. Beautiful soup. Second, I think the issue was this. I didn't pass the text version, and let's see if that actually solved the problem. Category, and this is for the payload. Okay, nice. Let's see what we got. Lab not served. Drink. We have email. We have password, and we have username underscore this. So we have our first column, we have second column, and we have the third columns. So these are the three columns that we expected to extract, and if you compare it with what we have on our manual exploitation, you see that they are very similar to the outputs that we have here. So in order to print that on the screen properly, we need to do some little modification to the code. So I'll remove this print statement since we know that the code is okay for now. So the first thing we need to do is to create a column database, and we can call it column table. And then we're going to pass the second soup, correct? And we're going to find underscore all the tr that we have. So if you're wondering why we need to find tr once more, if you go to the output, oh okay, I probably didn't print the, I printed the .text, so you won't be necessarily having this here. So let me comment this out just to understand better. So if I say print second soup, second underscore soup, I save it. So let's copy this. For the payload, the same payload which we use to list the table. We could possibly hard code this, but I'm just going to leave it anyway, so that we don't necessarily have to type it over and over again. Okay, great. So you can see now that we are not accessing the .text, we now have the each of the tags, and what we are after is the tr tag. You can see that the email, starting from this section here, we have the table class, we have the tbody, we have the tr, which is enclosed, which encloses the th tag, which also carries the actual name of the column. So we also have another one for the password. We have another one for the username as well. So that is why we are extracting the tr tag using the beautiful soup. So if you go back to our code, let me just remove this one, remove the column, then we can proceed. So the next thing we want to do is to create a new variable called username, where we're going to be saving each of the column information. So is equals to next, and we're going to have tr.th.text.strip, which is going to remove the excess white space. And after the strip, we can have a loop for tr in column. Let's call this one columns, so we can have this to be columns underscore table if tr.th and tr.th.text dot start with. So what does it start with? If you go back to the execution that we have here for username, if you start with this, so I'm going to copy this and put it inside the parameter here. So close the first two column, I beg your pardon, the first two brackets. So we have comma and else none. Okay, so we can actually use the same method for both the password and the email. So the exact same logic we use here is the exact same logic that we use to extract the table name. So I'm going to copy this, and let's create the second one. let's call it password is equals to sys next, not nex, so it will be next. So we're going to paste this and I'm going to correct that. Next, let's be sure that we're not missing anything. So this is going to be a password column. All right, great. So for the third one, we have email will be equals to email. So we can as well print. Just save this. Let's just format this a bit, and we can say print username. Then you have a comma. We'll call this username. Can do the same thing for the other two columns. So let's call this one password is equals to password. Okay, and for the last one, this is going to be email will be equals to email. All right, nice. Let's refresh to make sure that we're not losing connection. Great. So let's go back and see what we've got. Grab the URL, category, and the payload is going to be our common payload. Oh, I think I should grab this and just put it somewhere here. Just put it somewhere on the last line. Control Z. I just put it in a comment, so if I needed to copy it, to be easier for me. So the next thing is we want to use the payload in here in our execution. Let's see what we got. The table name. I think we have an error. That should be on line 38. That is where the issue started from. So it says username, comma, start with. I'll just make this bigger. 38, if I'm correct. So where's the error? Start with. Say str object has no start with. Has no start with. Okay, I think it's the s that's missing. If that's correct. Start with. I hope I'm correct. Okay. Oh, sorry about that. My bad. Not here. I should be here. Here. And here. Start with. And we'll remove this one. So let's execute one more time. and this is the payload. Wrong choice, wrong choice. Again, copy, paste, category, parameter, and for the payload, we're expected to be having this. And let's see what we got. Cool. So we have the table name, we have the column names. So the last thing is to list table content by combining the two columns together using union attack. So let's copy just one, and we can actually modify this here. So I'm going to copy, and let's go to the lab 5 script, and let's have one more comment just in case. All right, so let's just have one line between the output of the next thing I'm going to print. So we can just have print with an empty parameter. So let's have third payload, third underscore payload. So the third payload is going to be equals to as usual, and this is going to be what will be inside. I'm going to paste that in here. So the select union select, the first one is going to carry our extracted username. So let's remove this one. So the second one is going to carry the extracted password. Great. From, and this is going to carry the table name. So let's have it as the table name. So I believe we should be fine. All right, good. So let's have our third underscore full URL is equals to the URL question mark. Then we have the parameter as usual equals to, then we have our third payload. I hope that's correct. All right, so let's make the third request. So we're going to have third response equals to request dot get, and then we're going to be passing parameters like the third full URL, comma, and we're going to be passing the headers equals to headers. Great. The next thing we want to do is to create soup, where we're going to be saving the response. Let's call this one third underscore soup will be equals to beautiful soup. Then the parameter is going to be third response dot text. So we're accessing the text object, comma, and then we're passing the HTML parser. So let's just save. Good. So let's print to be sure we're on the right part. The third soup. And let's see what we've got. For the payload, we're going to still use the first payload. Good. So you can see that we've successfully extracted all the users within this database. But the issue is we still have a lot of different tags here. So what we need to do is to just access just the content alone. And we need to loop across the tr and the th tag in order to extract the username and password of all users within this database. As you can see, this is the administrator password, and this is the administrator password, and this is the administrator username. What we're going to do is to use the for loop in order to accomplish that. So let's go into our code. So let's remove the print statement. You can say tables is equals to third soup dot find underscore all. So what are we finding? If you go back to the content that we have here, you can see that all these username and password are inside the table tag. So we can extract the table tag, then access the tr tag from the table tag. So go in here, we would have table, and from the table we can say for table in tables, which is a for loop, rows equals to table dot find underscore all tr. So what we're doing here is actually very simple. What we do is the first soup.find is going to find all the items from the table class here down to the closing tag of the table, which is here. The second one, which is the for loop, now is going to loop towards each of these particular items that we have inside the table and try to get all the table row item here. So that is exactly what we are trying to do here. So the next thing we will do is to declare a new variable. We can call it the header, which is going to be the table header, which is going to be equals to row.find. So inside the row, we are looking for the th tag, which is holding the actual username and the password. So let's go check that out. So you can see that we have the th is the one holding the username, then the td is the one holding the actual password. The same thing on colors. We have th holding the username, td holding the password. So that is how we're going to extract it here. So we have the th, and we can access this dot text if row dot find th. Let's put this here. Else just output nothing. Okay, so the next thing here is the data, which is actually going to be the actual password, will be equals to row dot find td, which is exactly what I just explained earlier. So now we're finding td dot text if row dot find td else. So if it does not meet this condition, it is just output an empty string. So in this case, I think I messed something up here, because if we have a loop here for table in table, row equals to table dot find row, yes, which is actually correct. Okay, yeah, I think this is where we have an issue. So here we're expected to have for row in rows, then we can now have an indentation here, so that we will not have an error. Okay, now we can now print. Let's put this in a format. We can print f, which is going to format the output, and it's going to indicate the header. Then we have column header, then we have column, then we have the data, and let's close this. Okay, I hope that was correct, and I'm going to save, and let's see what happens when we run this script. Let's run this. That's line 56. Line 56. Okay, so I have a for loop, and I'm expected to have a semicolon at the ending. Do I have any other loop without that? Let's just remove this excess space. All right, let's try that one more time. Okay, cool. Copy link. Paste category, and our payload, still the one we've been using. Copy, and we're going to paste it in here, and watch. Great. So you can see that we've successfully extracted the username and password of the administrator account, along with the Carlos account and the winner account. So now we can actually test this out. So what I'm going to do for the final testing, now that we have our program working, is I'm going to clear this, and let's close this, and let's access the lab one more time. So let's run the script. First of all, Python. All right, great. So I'm just going to access any category filter, and let's have our URL. The parameter is category, and for the payload, we're going to be using the regular payload we've been using, and I'm just going to paste this in here, and we wait. So you can see it has successfully extracted the information once more. All we have to do is to copy the password to solve the lab, and go to my account, administrator. We're going to issue the password, and we're going to log in. Don't save. So you can see, congratulations, you solved the lab. So guys, that will be all in this video. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe for more content on SQL injection and other cybersecurity related topics. See you in the next video.